Muted.
Why gender diversity of staff is an institutional priority. Muna, let's start with you.
Thank you. This is the first webinar I do, so please give me, I'm open to any feedback along the way if there's anything that I'm saying that's not very clear. But thank you for this opportunity. I'm very keen to talk about this subject because it is one that is very close to my heart. And women, gender diversity is a topic that Microfund for Women has been tackling for a long time. It is in our DNA because we have been established to empower women. So already this year we celebrate our 20th anniversary since the first project was set up 20 years ago in Jordan between USAID and Save the Children as just a few home-based projects. And today we are very happy to have reached substantial targets of having 125,000 clients. 97% of them are women. We have a typical microfinance portfolio where we're focusing on the low-income women with a lot of group lending as being the bulk of our loans. And then we have a fewer, but also in the thousands of individual loans. And these individual loans, at some point, we actually opened also to give to men, which is a subject, if anyone's interested, I'm willing to discuss later. At the heart of what we're doing is empowering women, and we've been lucky that our board of directors, which is comprised of successful individuals in their own fields, who are also volunteering because they believe in the genuine double bottom line of wanting to empower women on the one hand, with achieving that social mission, but through an organization that is run extremely efficiently and is looking at the profit. We are a non-profit company, but we have to have strong financials to sustain our growth, which has happened in the last 20 years. In terms of, and we think that if we wanted to serve women, the most important thing is that we ourselves as an institution are honest about our belief in the success of women, and so we also, and the capabilities of women, and so that is why when I say it's within our DNA, we say we have to start at home to empower our own staff, which have now reached about 600 employees, around 55 branches across the country. And just to give you an idea, Jordan is not a big country. We have 7.5 million, a population of 7.5 million people. So in terms of how the goal of achieving and empowering women in our own institution, this has been happening over many years. And do you want me to go into that now, or do we want to talk about that later? How many minutes do I have, Rachel?
Let's stop here and let's just ask Alia to give a very short overview of Al-Majmua, and then let's get into some examples. So Alia, can you talk a bit about your institution and why gender diversity of staff is a priority for you?
Yes, sure. Can you hear me well?
Alia, could you speak up a little bit louder?
Yes, can you hear me well?
Still coming a bit faint.
Okay, let's try it. How is it now?
Much better, thank you very much.
Excellent. So hello everybody, it's a pleasure to be with you on this webinar today. So Al-Majmua actually share almost the same history as Microfund for Women. We're also celebrating this year our 20th anniversary since we started working with women beneficiaries in Lebanon, and we share the same history because Al-Majmua also spun off from a Save the Children USA funded initiative. So today Al-Majmua is the largest microfinance institution in Lebanon. We're serving more than 56,000 active borrowers all over the country. Women beneficiaries represent 56% of our clients. As for our employees, they represent 57% of the employees and 60% of the senior management team of Al-Majmua. We still have our NGO not-for-profit status like Microfund for Women, Today the organization has a total of 320 employees and 23 branches all over the country. So in regard to gender diversity, the first statement we'd like to say is that non-discrimination and equal gender opportunity has been at the very heart of Al-Majmou'ah's culture, our core values and our business principles since day one. And we are also serving, like Microfund for Women, a large number of low-income entrepreneurs, low-income beneficiaries, amongst which the women represent a majority. A specificity related to Lebanon is that we really rank very bad in terms of the World Economic Forum's Gender Gap Index. So we're really at the near bottom, being number 138 amongst 145 countries, I believe. So in this context, we at Al-Majmou'ah, we really strive to try being a model in improving the women's labor force participation in Lebanon. And that knowing that this participation has been stagnating around 25% for decades. So, so this is to give you a little bit of background in a nutshell.
Great, thank you. We'd like to hear from each of you if you could give us one or two examples of specific initiatives that you've implemented to ensure that your staff includes women at all levels of the organization. So Muna, can we start with you?
Yes, this one I think is, so Microfund for Women has, we have about, like Al-Majmou'ah, we are the largest player in Jordan, and there are about four or five other institutions doing the same thing who are all successful. But MFW already 10 years ago, all of these institutions serve mostly women, but they were all run by men, including Microfund for Women. And about 10 years ago, we had to choose, our board had to choose between a CFO, who was, when we had to recruit for the CEO position, we had a CFO who was male, and a COO female with 6 children. And the board actually, decided then to walk the talk and to actually appoint the general manager, who is the female with 6 children, and to really support her all the way. And she, during her tenure, did a fantastic job. So I think that's really very, very important. We can all sit here and talk about empowering women and all of that, but leave the top jobs always for men. And you do have to go out of your way sometimes to find the right women. I'm not saying that you need to lower your standards or you need to make exceptions. It's just that there are more men out there in the world who want to take leadership positions. But I think an organization needs to spend a longer time looking for the right women to lead the organization. That's one example. The second example, at Microfund, our working hours actually work better for women because we start earlier and finish earlier. So we start at 8 a.m. and finish at 4 p.m. That's a second initiative which was actually given as a long time ago as well, but asking women what kind of working hour, asking the staff what kind of working hours they preferred, and this is what they came out with. And as a working mother myself, it really makes much more sense to start early and finish early. So these are two initiatives, just two examples that I think have really worked for MFW.
Great, thank you. And Alia, could you give us one or two examples?
Yes, of course. So at Al-Majmou'ah, amongst the initiatives that we've done, for example, we have set proportion of women in each business unit and at each level. We've also established for recruitment, we've been using innovative activities like, for example, sending campaigns to targeted women clients, microcredit clients, in order to inform them about job opportunities. We've been also establishing financial incentives given to staff when they refer female employees. Another example would be offering, of course, flexible remote working hours, helping also our women, female staff when they're in maternity leave, because it's really in Lebanon a luxury to have extended maternity leave when we consider that the maternity leave has been for long capped at 49 days. And lately, only last year, it has been extended to 70 days of maternity. So it was really and actually I was the first beneficiary of this type of flexibility, being a mom of 5 kids. So I can tell you that it was really much appreciated. And for sure it increased my loyalty towards the organization.
Thank you. You know, in describing those different steps that you've taken, are there challenges that you face, challenges from staff or challenges from your boards in moving this work forward?
I think there will always be lots of naysayers in any organization who think that you can't really do this, or it's not worth it, or it's all the same, or it's not worth the extra effort. And I think that's really where you have to really stick to your commitment. And it's not always possible, or it's not always necessary to have a woman. I'm just saying that organizations need to spend enough time looking for the right women, and not just taking the first best gentleman who comes in. Actually, you know, the funny thing, we've reached a point, so 70% of our staff are women, and recently, just a year ago, I appointed a deputy who's male, and it's very funny because I very often have to protect his interests. So lately he was, you know, invited to speak, but then wasn't given the position because they wanted the female to speak. So I thought that was funny. But that said, I think to maintain the right balance, definitely you have to spend the right amount of time looking for it. And again, where there's a will, there's a way. The second thing, for example, that we're facing at MFW that we haven't been able to solve that well, actually, is by the Jordanian law, where we have to provide, if you're an organization more than 15 people, employees, the 15 female employees who have babies, you have to have a creche in your office. And so we have really been committed to going after that. The problem there, which is a real problem, is that, you know, you have to have special real estate on the ground floor, and it becomes an extremely costly and difficult affair. So that's a challenge we're facing at the moment, and we need to find a very quick solution, because the dynamics in the cultural dynamics in Jordan are changing. Before, women had their children, until recently actually, and just left their children with their moms. But now more women are working, and life is changing in general. So women can't necessarily always rely on keeping their children with their extended families. And so therefore we do have to step in if we want women to serve this purpose. And we've been quite active in trying to build a consortium, maybe to set up a creche. But in the meantime, what we're doing is we have to give a stipend to our staff, so that they have a secured daycare that is reasonable for them to keep their children at. That's a very big challenge that we face at the moment.
Thank you. And Alia, challenges that you could speak to?
Well, in terms of challenges, I think the culture is definitely a challenge that we had to face. And you know, there's this culture bias by which people would tend to say, yes, women's place is considered at home, not in a workforce. So we had to do a lot of awareness, a lot of explanation why we believe in gender diversity, why we believe in equal opportunity amongst our staff. Then we had also some challenges by the women themselves. So, you know, with this glass ceiling is really an issue by which they would not believe in themselves, that they could be able to balance their professional life and their personal life, and actually, you know, advance their career in Al Majmoua. Also, what we've been noticing is challenges would be external. We would have people external to Majmoua who would just say that, you know, it's not professional practices when you offer to women employees the possibility of bringing their newborn, for example, to a meeting, or for allowing breastfeeding breaks. So I think most of it was really cultural issues that we had to face.
And Ali,
I like your point, Alia, about the career development, because I do believe, I agree, especially, you know, after spending time in the workforce myself, I do think that women tend to maybe undersell themselves, and it's becoming quite, you know, well documented that women will only go for a job if they feel they have 100% of the requirements that are asked by the job. And I think one thing that has really worked for us was that at the time where we grew and we doubled our branches from 20 to 40 within a span of 3 years probably, we recruited internally the 20 branch managers, and most of them are women. So that really gave a big boost and very strong role modeling for women who were entering a microfund, saying, okay, well, I can have a career path and I can grow with this organization. And that really kind of builds their loyalty to the organization. It builds confidence amongst the women that this is something that actually we have to do together. And the way, you know, I had the mentor who supported me to grow. I have this responsibility now for the newcomers into the organization who are younger, to really mentor them and to give them the aspiration to reach what I have done.
Excuse me, Rachel, if I may just back up something on this, if you allow me.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so definitely 100%, like Muna is saying, role model is something essential in an institution. And the idea of providing coaching and mentoring also is something essential. So this is what we've been providing, mentoring from female senior managers to female middle managers, helping them grow, find a safe space where they can, you know, share their fears, share their ambition, was really a core thing that proved to be successful.
And can you also, both of you, speak a little bit more about other work? You've talked a lot about the external culture, just internally, some other things that you've done to really build a culture within your organization that supports this work?
So it does go back also to recruitment and the people that you choose. So, you know, we have in our top management team a lot of women who are very strong, with very strong characters and who have the willingness to learn. And once you're an organization, so basically it's about attracting talent. And when you're attracting talented women, you're just adding something very strong to your organization. So I think recruitment really plays a large role, and putting an emphasis that comes all the way from the top of the organization, saying, I do care about this subject and I'm going to ask about it every meeting. It does make a difference, and it just becomes the norm that, you know, we are going to look for women. And I can see how an organization that is run, you know, without this sensitivity and is just trying to track numbers, it becomes more of a challenge, because it's not part of your everyday HR manager, how they think, or how the marketing is done, even internal communication, how it passes. It has to be very, very gender specific. So I think that's really how I would push for it. Yeah.
And Alia, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think at Al Majmoua we were, and probably I believe the same would have happened at Microfund for Women, is that we have a very strong culture of non-discrimination, a culture that supports all employees and ensure equal opportunities and equal treatment for all. So the base was already there. Then, like Muna was saying, it's about keep delivering the message again and again across the organization that we are a gender equal opportunity organization. It's important to use our internal communication channels. So for example, we rely a lot on our quarterly newsletter to the staff, and we heavily celebrate events like, for example, the Women International Day that we do in partnership WWB. So I think that our staff, that's it, they got used to it. It's within how we live our culture on a daily basis. And I think another thing that was a turning point is when our employees started to notice a direct correlation between the increase of women as loan officers and actually the increase of women beneficiaries. So this helped Al Majmoua to reverse a bad trend, we say, that we had, that basically we were able to reverse the percentage of women clients from 30% 8 years back in time to 56% today. And this really also gave momentum to the whole initiative.
Great, thank you. I just want to pause for a moment and remind all of our listeners that if you'd like to submit a question, please do so. So you just mentioned, Ali, you just mentioned the connection to the business. So can each of you talk a little bit more about how all of this work links back directly to serving women and any additional outcomes you've seen in the business?
Definitely. So Ali, I don't know if you want to start actually. Sorry, I'm jumping in.
No, go ahead, it's fine.
I think one of the things that we've done jointly with Women's World Banking was very interesting, which was, so we said that, you know, we're focused on women, that's why we exist. And that kind of, you know, we're beyond that point now. The question is, how are we going to improve our service to our women clients? And so with Women's World Banking, a long time ago, we made a survey to understand what the client's needs are beyond credit. At a time when microfinance was really purely mostly about credit, and found that really what they care mostly about after the, you know, having additional income in their household is the health of their household. And so that's when we, together with Women's World Banking and an insurance company, set up a microinsurance product that really seems to have hit the nail on the head for the needs of our clients. So most of our clients are covered on a national level, but this just gives them an additional cash stipend in case of hospitalization. And we actually just moved it from covering only the woman to covering her entire family. That's one thing. And another thing that was very interesting when so what I'm trying to say is that we need to listen to our clients to understand what their needs are, and then we can serve them better as women. And so one of the interesting things was when we had the Credit Life product, our clients came to us after a while and said, wait a minute, you know, what's happening with a lot of the clients is that we're working really hard, we're paying back all our loans, and then if we pass away, our husbands get all the money, and then they go and marry someone else. So we'd like that to change. And so we actually did change that. Now our clients, in case of their spouse passing away, actually receive money for that will allow them to bridge, you know, this big change in our lives. And so that's another example of when you really are focusing on how you're going to help women and empower them and do things. That's in your product development that comes through, and then also in your partnerships. So, for example, we partnered with the breast cancer, the leading national breast cancer awareness organization. And so, since a few years now, at the time of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we have in all our branches lectures. We even have screenings for our clients in partnership with this organization because we're focused on women. And this is an issue, obviously, that touches women. So it allowed us also to zero in on the type of partnerships that we really care about that will help our clients.
Thank you, Muna. And Alia?
Well, for ourselves, so besides the point I was mentioning earlier that we've seen the increase of women beneficiaries with the increase of women loan officers, what we've been also doing is that through focus groups, we have been able to improve our financial products, develop new financial products that are really designed towards our women entrepreneurs. For example, launching last year a no collateral lending product, individual loan for women. This was the result of listening to our women clients. Another area where definitely we've been focusing a lot is the non-financial services, and by providing financial education, household budgeting, entrepreneurship programs for women, really we've seen an improvement in their economic and social capabilities and situation. Now, the last point I would like to mention also is that by taking this very proactive line of gender diversity in Al Majmoua, lately we've been recognized as an important actor of the women's rights in Lebanon, specifically on economic empowerment rights. So, and lately we've been invited to help design the National Women Entrepreneurship Strategy.
Wow, that is fantastic. Can you talk a little bit more about that work?
Yes, of course. So in Lebanon we have a body that is called it's a woman machinery. It's called the National Council for Lebanese Women. And basically they have decided 2 years ago to really work on a national strategy for women economic empowerment and women entrepreneurship. And we've created a core groups of organizations who are involved in this process, along with public sector ministries. And hopefully in the coming months we'll be able to launch this national strategy that we would have helped design.
So given all that you both have described, and especially given the connection to improving the double bottom line, why do you each think that gender diversity or parity is still such a big challenge for organizations to implement? You've had so much success. What gets in the way?
Actually, you know, it's funny because I think you need to get to a critical mass, because at Microfund now we've just set up an SME unit. So we're going to give larger loans to the small and medium businesses that either some of our clients who have scaled up to take up to $100,000, which require a different credit methodology, etc. And so we're planning to spin this off totally into a new business in its own unit. And actually, as a new business, I have to say, we've had challenges. I was really more hopeful that we would have more female clients. We've recruited a lot of women. We've given incentive to our loan officers that if they do find female clients, they have higher incentive than if they get male clients. I've really been pushing, but for startups, I can see the challenges, because there you really want your business to stand on its feet and you can't really be as picky. So I think, you know, what you have to do is really to look at the longer run when you're setting up a business, for example, in a startup case, and say, okay, let me just make sure it's a stable business first, and in the meantime continue to focus on women. But we shouldn't have the women issue sabotage, you know, because we have to put extra effort, and startups don't have the luxury of that necessarily all the time. Sometimes maybe it's a matter of time and a matter of getting the critical mass, that then it just becomes part of, we've reached a point in Microfund where it's not a subject. Gender, we barely talk about it, because there are so many women. They are equally treated to men. There's really no room for discrimination either way. So I think that's really the end goal, but it takes a while to get there. And it's the idea of putting the right pieces in place that we've been discussing for a while.
Thank you. And Alia, why do you think this is still such a big challenge for organizations?
I think that besides the challenge I've mentioned earlier that is related to cultural bias, I think that there is also some, we need to prove the business case, because another bias that we hear often is that, yes, if you give more flexibility to women, then the productivity of your organization will decrease, and if you recruit more women, then they will get pregnant all the time and they will leave for a certain number of, months, and then again the productivity will decrease. Well, this is not what we've observed in Majmoua. Actually, I think that if the organization has the proper culture of trust and accountability, then what we see is that people actually deliver, if not the same results, better results, because they feel they owe to their organization, and they make sure that they do their job, perfectly and give 100% of their ability.
Muted.
You've both given a number of different examples, but what do you think has been the biggest factor in the success of these initiatives? Is it the connection to the bottom line? Is it the loyalty that you've seen? What has been the biggest factor in success?
In our case, it's definitely the will of the board to put this at the top of the agenda. It is an issue at the top of the agenda of the board.
Muted.
So before we even talked about things like diversity and social performance and all of that, it was always at the core of MFW. And so because the board, again, it was in the DNA, I think it is, in my opinion, the will of the board to make this happen.
And is the board, Muna, is the board instrumental in accountability, establishing accountability for all of this? Are there other ways that you hold senior level staff accountable for this work?
We have definitely, we report with all our HR data. We're always reporting on gender, and also with our operational data at the field, we report on gender. So it is watched. The reason why I say the board is because when the board is expecting that of the general manager, then the general manager is expecting that of their HR manager, of their marketing manager, of everyone in the organization. And so it becomes really the language. But if it is number 10 on the general manager's agenda, then that is where to be. So I think, everybody has to watch for it, but it also, again, in the case of our board of directors, when they did choose the female manager, that was a huge signal. And it really, in my opinion, kind of really proved to the employees in the organization that we're serious about this.
Great, thank you. And Alia?
Well, in Majmoua, I think it was two trends. Our bottom-up, very strong social mission, double bottom line driven, employees, and from a top-down approach, definitely the board of directors, along with the senior management, has played a key role in the success of the initiatives. For example, we have a board who is not afraid to have a majority of women senior managers, and the board who really advocate for the preparation of the next generation of women leaders in the organization. So this can only, help us continue this initiative successfully.
Thank you. We have a question that came in about the cost of programs. How do you offset the cost of these different programs that you've each described?
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so actually for a Majmoua, really the cost is the minimum compared to the benefits of, living our social mission and really the positive results we can obtain on the long run. So what we've noticed is that really by investing more in women, could it be in training, in recruitment, in selection, in training, in having equal pays, the impact on our social mission is priceless.
Yeah, I paused a bit also because I'm trying to figure out what the actual cost is. And I'm not sure it's so substantial, to be honest. I can't see. I mean, if you're finding the best person for the job, then I don't think that there's a huge cost associated with it, really. But I could be wrong. I mean, my question to the person who asked this is, do you have specific costs that you're thinking about?
Let's see if we get a response from that person. While we're waiting, another question. Again, given that this gender parity is still quite a big challenge for many organizations, if you were to offer one piece of advice for someone in an organization that really wants to move forward on gender diversity and gender parity, what would be your one starting place or one piece of advice that you would give them?
My piece of advice would be to really take the time to choose correctly for the job women who are capable to deliver on what their task is as a job, and who have enough, and in general have some sort of screening for everybody who comes into the organization to test genuinely if they do believe in gender parity or not, be it if they're female or male. Because that's the kind of spirit that you need to keep in the organization. And it's usually the first thing that one of the major things I talk about whenever I'm recruiting or talking to people. I explain to them that if you want to be successful in the organization, you have to genuinely believe in gender equity. And if you don't, and you pretend for the next 2 months that you do, but you genuinely don't, you won't last here for a long time.
And Muna, just to follow up your answer, can you talk a little bit more specifically about your recruiting? How do you cast a wide enough net to be able to get a good flow of women applying?
That's a good question. So like in Lebanon, we have abysmal female participation in the formal workforce. And what we need to do continuously is to make sure that we always have a wide pool of employees to select from. So when it comes to the field, for example, we have to have always a pipeline of 10 or 15 women that we're screening, and this process has developed over time, where our screening process is substantial, and we do participate in most job fairs that happen on college campuses. We recruit in general very fresh graduates for the loan officer position, and we do a lot of in-house training ourselves. So I think that's one point, so that we have fresh individuals where we've tested a few things for them, but in reality we're really teaching them on the job and training them in a training, in a very let's say thorough training program. When it comes to more senior individuals, we don't hesitate to actually hire from outside the industry. We rarely recruit from within the industry. So we tend to get people who have been successful in other fields and assume that within a few months they'll be able to learn microfinance. But if they have shown that they are really, successful women in their field of, let's say finance in the telecom industry, there's no reason why she can't take such a challenge at Microfund for Women. And so, for example, our CFO is the only, or was the first female CFO of a microfinance institution with our competitors, and she came from a telco. And she's been with us for now 10 years and is, doing a marvelous job. So I think it's these two things, which is definitely you need to have a pipeline, you need to think of training, and you need to cast enough of a wide net where you're not only focusing on finance, because then since the industry in general tends to be very male dominated, especially the banking sector, I think all over, when it comes to more senior roles that you're looking at, it's definitely worth looking at and considering seriously other industries as well.
Great, thank you, Muna. And Alia?
I think a recommendation maybe that I would give to people, or a tip, or I don't know, testimony is that I think we always talk in our industry about being customer-centric. I think simply by being staff-centric, and in particular woman-centric, this can help us better understand the needs of our employees. This can help us show them a human face and, for example, no longer talk about human resources, but rather human capital. And I think that by showing them you're interested in them as persons, then they will give you a lot of feedback on how to improve internally your own business model. And this way we can increase the well-being of our staff, their commitment, their long-term loyalty towards the institution. We can also increase their commitment to the women entrepreneurs that we're serving. So I think it's really about showing to all the employees in the organization where the win-win is. And I was just remembering a study I've read a couple of years ago. It was, I believe, from the Business Harvard School, where they were saying that actually when you have more women in your task force, you have an increased financial bottom line. So maybe we could kind of look at a case study in our industry to try to prove if this is indeed what's happening with us.
Thank you. We do have a few questions that have come in, so thank you for those submitting questions. We have a question, Alia, specifically going back to the connection you made between female loan officers and increased female clients. Can you speak a little bit more about the role of data and proving the business case? How you collected the data and then used that to show the link?
Actually, it was very straightforward to demonstrate this. What happened with us is Al-Majmoua started by providing only group lendings. In 2001, when we opened to individual lending and to male entrepreneurs, this is when we saw the drop in our percentage of female clients. What happened is that basically when we did individual lending and towards men, we recruited a lot of male loan analysts, and those male loan analysts, they would have a tendency not to go and prospect for women entrepreneurs, women clients. And we noticed after analyzing our portfolio of clients that one of the main issue was first a reduced number of group loans, and second the fact that our individual loan analysts who were male were lending to male. So we decided that in order to reverse this, it could be a good idea to pilot this initiative of recruiting more female loan entrepreneurs, both in the group lending and the individual lending. And what happened is, just looking at our dashboard, our database information, we saw that there was a link. It was a trend that was, like a parallel trend. The more we'd recruit female loan analysts, and the more we'd have women in group lending and women in individual lending.
Great, thank you. Another question that just came in, how important are male champions in this work, and how do you get them on board?
They're very important. I do believe in gender diversity with the full term. So I think an organization that only has women also will probably, studies will come out that will show that that's not the right balance either. So I think that having male champions is really great. And I have to say that, especially in our part of the world, to see males who are so dedicated to empowering women is really heartwarming, and actually has an incredibly powerful message. and you know, they are the most, you know, civilized men in the society who are willing to really go out on a limb and work for an NGO that is actually supporting women. So it is, I think, to answer your question, it is very important. And again, these can be screened while you are recruiting. And in fact, similar to what Alia was saying, you know, this becomes, when it's in your organization and starting at the bottom, bottom up as well, when everybody has this passion for empowering women, it becomes contagious. And so the men who have this feeling within them also tend to succeed as well. So.
Thank you, Muna. Alia, same question. How important are male champions?
It's like Mona was saying, they are very, very important because they are also role models for the male staff in the organization. So in Al-Majmoua we have two categories of male staff. Either they've been within Majmoua forever, and because we have a strong policy of internal promotion, so they are, you know, it's natural for them. So we have no issue with those staff, and they promote women empowerment. Now, for the track of employees, male employees who are coming from an external track, I think it all goes back to a point that Mona was mentioning earlier, that it's all about the proper recruitment and selection process, in making sure that we have a cultural match, in making sure that this male who is applying for a position in Majmoua has no cultural issues in working with other women. In the contrary, would be really promoting this within the organization and outside the organization. So we do take a lot of time to evaluate, to do behavioral test of the person, and to evaluate if we do have this cultural match.
Thank you, Alia. We have time for one or two more questions. The question just came in. Did either of you gain inspiration from other organizations when supporting women's leadership in your own businesses? If so, which organizations, either in the finance world or otherwise? So, Muna, can we start with you?
Can I ask you to read it again? If we got inspiration from other institutions?
Absolutely. So the question is, did either of you gain inspiration from other organizations in terms of supporting women's leadership in your own organization?
Well, our partnership with Women's World Banking definitely has always been a good source of a very good support in product development that is focused on women, in understanding our clients, in doing all of that. So being part of the Women's World Banking Network actually has always been a great push for us to continue on this path of women's empowerment. And it's good to know that there are other global institutions that are doing the same. In terms of the banking sector in Jordan, for example, there are not that many women even present on the boards of banks. Maybe a few are headed by women, but not many. And so, unfortunately, that's not necessarily where we would have gotten our inspiration. It's more with Women's World Banking and organization. Actually, a lot of the inspiration I get personally also is when I do see our female clients and their successes, when they with so little and against all odds are able to succeed. To me, that is the largest source of inspiration for women's empowerment, to be honest.
Thank you, Muna. And Alia, can you talk about what inspires you?
Well, we're always inspired, and in the region, I would say that definitely organizations like Microphone for Women in Jordan, like ENDA in Tunis, have been great models to follow, and practitioners to look at, see how they're developing new products, new initiative, being very creative in approaching woman empowerment, and we got inspired by them. We got inspired also by organizations like Siwa in India, for example, who are doing a tremendous work with women empowerment. And definitely, like Muna was saying, having the chance of being a partner in the WWB network has been also a great push, a great resource for Al-Majmoua to keep the momentum and continue the hard work in this regard.
Great, thank you. We have time for one last question that was submitted. Can each of you speak to the role of women leaders as mentors and sponsors to create a pipeline of future women leaders? So, Muna, can we start with you, the role of women leaders as mentors and sponsors?
Definitely. I see a huge role. I think, you know, one of my, on a personal level, one of my biggest shocks was, I don't have 5 kids, but I have 3. And one of my biggest shocks actually was when I became a mother, you know, trying to do these 2 things. And I think it's a very personal reaction that people have, actually. Some women continue their career very comfortably. Other women really want to give priority to their families, and there's no right or wrong answer. But I think the role of mentors who have, you know, seen a lot and have gone through the path for 20 or 30 years have a huge role to play in talking to women as at the beginning of their careers, and, you know, even before they become mothers or before they decide to have a family and have to make choices, to really maybe play around with what their options are, to understand better what they're going to look at, to understand better how to plan and how to move forward. So, because I think these matters, you know, no matter how open-minded men are, I think it's very difficult to understand the dilemmas that women do face. And I think, you know, in the spirit of wanting to you know, advance the feminist agenda and to say we can do so many things, I think there's a huge burden actually on young women when they are trying to juggle all of these things, and sometimes end up putting too much pressure on themselves. This is a global issue that touches women from all parts of society who decide to work and have a family. And so I think the role of mentors really is to talk a lot about their personal experience and to be honest about it, and to say what didn't work, what was terrible, what was difficult, what they would have done differently. Because to paint such a rosy picture and say you can have it all, I think is not fair for a younger generation who really is trying also to do their best.
Thank you, Muna. Alia, anything you'd like to add?
Well, I think that it's something new for women, the whole concept of mentoring and networking and all this kind of thing. I do believe that for men, they've been doing this for ages. And it's interesting to see that in the past, I would say 3 to 4 years, there has been a lot of new initiatives, new platforms for you know, providing women mentoring, women coaching, having role models amongst the women leaders, and this is definitely a very important trend that we can build upon and really implement. Could it be in our organizations with our staff or even with our beneficiaries? Because beyond the program that I was explaining earlier about senior female managers who are, you know, mentoring middle managers, we have also developed some mentoring relationship amongst our own female beneficiaries, by which we couple, we put together a successful woman entrepreneur with a startup female entrepreneur, and one would coach another, one would mentor another. The thing being that the mentee would have in the future to become a mentor, so that we keep the chain and make sure that it's it's a new chain, it's a new trend, it's something that will, you know, become sustainable in the future.
Great. Well, we are coming up to an hour. Want to give each of you a chance to just, want to give a 1-minute kind of parting thought for everyone who's dialed in. Muna, can we start with you?
Sure. My conclusion would be that I believe that the sky is the limit for women in terms of what we can achieve in really mainstreaming their role in organizations, especially organizations that serve women. When there's a will, there's a way. And a lot of people will come and question you along the way and ask you if it's worth it, if it's too expensive, if it's this, if it's that, but this person is easier to hire, etc. And I think that's really where managers who stick to their genuine values of wanting to really empower women and not discriminate at all against them will be able to make the biggest difference.
Great, thank you, Muna. And Alia, closing thoughts?
Well, I think that we can play a huge role in unlocking the potential of women. I would tell other organizations not to be afraid, to invest in gender diversity, to invest in women employees, to invest in their women entrepreneurs, and I think that they won't regret it. It's going to be a bumpy way, like Mona was saying, but definitely in the end, it's all about achieving our mission and being an actor of change in our economies, in our countries, I think.
Thank you. On behalf of Women's World Banking, thank you, Muna and Alia, for sharing your experiences so candidly. I want to thank everyone who's joined us today. I hope you feel inspired to ask how you can support gender parity and diversity in your workplace. We will send an email with the recording of this webinar, and there will also be a follow-up on our blog. So check Women's World Banking's website or social media to see when that's posted. We will also be sharing the URLs of each institution where you can find more information. And we urge you to support our newest initiative, Bank on Her Leadership, by sharing on social media. So again, thank you all for your participation and your insightful questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Good afternoon and evening.